Alright folks, we have 10 more days until Dragon Age the Veilguard comes out. We had preview events, we had gameplay reveals, we also got to play the game early, and there's lots of information to go over in this video. In fact, this took way too long to compile than I care to admit. But here are over 20 things you need to know before playing Dragon Age the Veilguard. And to keep the tradition going, I'm giving away another deluxe edition copy of the game on all platforms. All you have to do is to be a subscriber of the channel, like on the video, and comment down below if you want to enter. And yes, I will announce the winner the day before launch. But speaking of that, we have the release and the preload time windows right here available on screen right now. And in terms of the preload, the PC is the last one to get it on October 31st at 9 AM PDT. Reason being is because, well, PC gets it without featuring any DRMs, so it doesn't launch with any de novos or anything. You just download the game on day one and basically get to play it on release. In terms of the consoles, Xbox Series X and S already got it on October 14th, and then PlayStation 5 will get it on October 29th, also at 9 AM PDT. And by the way, the game is fully Steam verified, so Steam users don't have to install any third-party like launchers such as the EA app or anything to play. You just install it and play it right away from Steam. Now, in terms of system requirements, we do have some detailed specifications here, both for ray tracing on and off. So for the minimum specs, it seems to be rather accessible. Needs like a Core i5 over there, but for the higher end stuff like ray tracing on and whatnot, you will obviously need at least a Core i9, 3080 or equivalent, and 16 gigs of RAM. Also, by the way, the game is fully PlayStation 5 Pro enhanced, so it will benefit from the upgrades in image quality and especially the PSSR AI scaler that Sony uses on the console refresh. So this includes improved resolutions in 30 FPS fidelity and 60 FPS performance mode likewise. And by the way, there's another benefit, and that is the fact that ray traced ambient occlusion, even in the FPS like the 60 FPS performance mode, will absolutely be available. So that means 60 FPS, better graphics, which I'm all up for. Now, what changes compared to the previous Dragon Age game? Well, there are actually quite a few. Previous Dragon Age entries, for example, were a lot more focused on the RPG aspect and were a bit slower, while Veilguard is a lot more focused on the action part of the action RPG. So even though you only have 3 main abilities slotted now, an ultimate and then the runes, all other actions like dodges, parries, and especially attack combos that would previously occupy a spot on your skill bar are something that you can now just do with different button combinations as you unlock them from their respective skill trees. So for example, just for the rogue, I can give you a few examples over here. There are special attacks that you can do when pressing both the light and the ranged attack button. Others while sprinting, jumping, or following dodges or parries. And there's even heavy attacks. Well, yeah, BioWare calls them charged attacks. But basically, you do a skill similar to some of the ones we had in Inquisition, like for example, Twin Fangs now is a charged skill, so you can just pull it off with Shift plus right click instead of having to occupy a slot on the skill bar. And pretty much every class has their own, and mages probably are the most like evolved of them all because they also have the dagger and the orb they can switch to, not just the staff, so they have even more combos to pull off that way. Besides that, as you know, this is the first Dragon Age that takes away the overhead control of the tactical screen, opting instead for what I like to call, and what basically is, a pause wheel. It's basically a pause wheel. Now, some folks prefer the old system, some don't mind the new one. I'm of the first category just because I think an overhead view gave a better idea of what's happening around you, especially when there were a lot of enemies. But yeah, according to BioWare, less than 5% of the players were even using the overhead tactical view, so I guess that's why it went away. Moving on, there's also going to be only 2 companions present with us, down from the previous 3 we had in the previous entries. They also only feature about 5 or 6 abilities in their skill trees, including their respective passives, so it's no longer going to be a fully fledged class that you can also play with. You cannot control these companions at all, basically. On top of that, because of the more condensed skill trees, you also have access to fewer abilities from them, but at the same time you also have fewer gear slots to preoccupy your time with. So in the case of your companions, you only have to worry about the main hand, the offhand, or the keepsake, also one armor slot, and finally a trinket, and that's basically it. But the upside is that you can also enchant all of these, and you can even enchant abilities both for yourself and for your party mates, as we're going to talk about in just a little bit. Now, one thing that I'm super excited for is the new combo system. So this makes a return from some of the previous games, like Mass Effect Andromeda had one, Anthem had one. I'm pretty sure that some of the Dragon Age games also had one as well. But the way it works is that you have abilities that are primers and others that are detonators, which synergize with one another, giving you more ways to actually combo your skills with that of your party mates and kind of come up with these really awesome synergies. So when you prime a target and then detonate it, this causes an extra AoE explosion to deal even more damage and apply extra effects on the target, like sundering effect to reduce enemy defenses, or even effects that can stun them a lot quicker, plus damage over time, and so on and so forth. Now, combos will be visualized from the tactical screen with arrows to more easily just pull these off, at least in the beginning until you get used to them. But later on, you can pretty much quick bind both your abilities as well as your companion abilities to shortcuts so that you can just cast them instantly. You can literally play this like almost all previous Dragon Age games without ever having to enter that tactical mode if you don't want to, which is pretty awesome actually. Let's talk about classes now. Classes have a big makeover, but there are some similarities to some of the old classes. So of course we have the mages, the rogues, and the warriors. Any lineage can pick any class except the dwarves, which cannot be mages, keeping the lore accurate. But in terms of the specializations, mages have the Deathcaller, the Evoker, and the Spellblade. So Deathcaller, you can think of this as kind of like the Necromancer version of this game, using the forces of life and death to drain enemies of their power and even power up the spells using their own life force. Then we have Evoker. This one uses devastating elemental spells, especially lightning, electricity, ice, even fire. And finally, the Spellblade. Everybody who enjoyed Knight Enchanter in Inquisition should feel right at home. This further enhances and expands upon the dagger and orb combo with even more combos, which already look spectacular. Like, all these classes are way more mobile than ever before, way more agile, and no longer as static as they used to be. We covered the rogue before, so we have Duelist, which is your typical assassin, using 2 blades for very fast attacks, and there's even an adrenaline mechanic in the game that I find really awesome. You can boost the damage with it, attack speed, and even health regen, which is really crazy. And then we have the Saboteur, which is kind of like your trap master, uses turrets and other traps to control the flow of the battle. And finally, Veil Ranger, your typical archer, but with some electricity-infused powers. This one can even slow time with its aim and do a bunch of other cool ranger tricks. And finally, we have the Warrior, which features 3 specializations, Reaper, Champion, and Slayer. I'm not gonna lie, that Reaper looks the most interesting to me. Kinda uses the power of death to deal damage to enemies, necrotic damage, and even siphon their life. Then we have the Champion, your typical sword and shield playstyle, which can also fit a tank sort of role, but not necessarily, because it can also deal lots of damage. It still dishes out good damage and even has a Captain America style shield throw, which I think looks really cool. And finally, we have the Slayer. This emphasizes on large, 2-handed weapons, can even leap into combat with devastating attacks, dealing lots of physical damage and high stagger. Now, of course, with all of these classes, we also have to talk about factions. There are some returning factions and also completely new ones. And the thing about this is that they synergize very well with one another. So factions will influence how your character plays. We have the Grey Wardens, Veil Jumpers, Shadow Dragons, Lords of Fortune, Mournwatch, and also Antivan Crows. And your starting allegiance will influence how fast you gain reputation with that starting faction, but does not lock you out of helping other factions out in your gameplay and getting their rewards. You can pretty much level up all factions. It's just that your starting choice will give you more benefits. So let's talk about some of these extra benefits besides the extra XP rate. So they also provide useful passives and increase in damage versus certain types of enemies. So for example, Grey Wardens give you higher base defense and health, and also more damage versus Darkspawn, so this can be very suited for a warrior. Then we have Veil Jumpers, which slightly increase your criticals and weak point damage, and also increase damage versus Fate-touched enemies. So this can work really well for a rogue, for example. Then we have the Shadow Dragons, which increase class resource generation and damage against Venatori, so this could work really well on a mage. But we have Lords of Fortune. This lets you perform takedowns with less effort and increases damage versus mercenaries. Then the Mournwatch can apply additional affliction stacks on target, which actually sounds really interesting for something like a Deathcaller mage or maybe a Reaper warrior, because you kind of use afflictions with both of those. But it can also work on a duelist rogue or anything that applies a lot of statuses. Rogues can also do that via necrotic and bleeds. And finally, Uneven Crows, which lets you hold more potions and deal more damage versus the Anthem. And you can even see the high and the low end faction armor right from this screen right here. It kind of gives you an idea of what the cosmetics that you can unlock for each specific background is. I think that the Uneven Crows looks the best, even though it's not my first selection of a faction. And beyond this, you're also going to influence your last name with the choice of faction. So you can actually decide on the first name. You can either use that name generator from the game or even give it your own name, but the last name is always going to be influenced by the faction choice. So that is actually pretty interesting. Now, Veilguard is going to be a direct sequel of 2014's Inquisition, with the story taking place roughly 10 years-ish after the events of Inquisition, and especially those of the Trespasser DLC. Solas, of course, who previously got revealed as being the Dreadwolf, has now kind of begun this ritual to tear down the veil, causing all sorts of demons to emerge in the world, and this is where we pretty much pick off. For those of you who are shaky on the lore, there's going to be a quick recap at the start of the game that pretty much gives you all of this information in the form of a quick cinematic, so you can be brought up to speed. But here you get to play as a character named Rook. You're not stuck with that name. As I've said, you can give it your own name. It's just that that's how other characters will refer to you, kind of like how they refer to the Inquisitor back in the previous game. Also, the action takes place mainly in the Tevinter Imperium. Now, as you may or may not know, the game no longer features an open world design. Instead, BioWare opting more for a curated and linear set of environments. However, that doesn't mean that the game doesn't have any exploration, at least from our time with the game when we got invited last month. There seem to be a lot of adjacent routes to uncover, a lot of secret places with extra loot, quests, puzzles, even secret, powerful enemies to encounter, which seem to be part of the endgame at the very least. So there's that. Plus, we also have the Crossroads, which is more of like this open region that bridges the gap between the Fade and the various places in the physical world. So this has more of like a branched out design with more entries to uncover that will lead us to other places as we pass through Illuvians and whatnot. Also, we have several major areas confirmed and already showcased. We even played in some that we kind of are not allowed to even discuss, but we've seen Erlathan Forest, an ancient magical woodland, once heart of the Elven Empire, quite picturesque and vibrant. Also Hosberg wetlands, pretty much in contrast with the previous, a blight-consumed marshland, very gloomy and filled with darkspawn. Then we've seen Minrathous, one of the major cities in the game. Pretty much the early gameplay showcases a lot of this, but we can revisit it at a later stage. And it's, of course, the capital of the Tevinter Imperium. We've seen another city, which is Treviso. We got to play quite a lot of it in our session last month. This is a merchant city featuring a lot of canals, lots of marketplaces, vendors, NPCs, and even paths that you can pass. There's actually that in the game too. Rivane is another one that got teased. We haven't seen much gameplay here, but it's a very exotic place, very vibey with palm trees and sparkling waters. And there's also an ancient Grey Warden fortress here sitting by the coast, so there's quite a bit of lore going on over there too. But there are at least a couple of regions that I know of that aren't part of any of the presentations. Now, in all of this, our main hub, which is the lighthouse, will play a significant role. You get to unlock this early. Initially, it belongs to Solas, and when we get to find it, it's in a pretty derelict, rundown state. However, that changes over time as we move in and our companions chime in and also kind of bring their own upgrades. And this is, by the way, where you also do a lot of gear upgrades. Also, it's a place filled with history, lore entries, manuscripts, and you also get to interact here with some of the memories showing more of Solas's past, especially in terms of his rebellion against the elven gods. Of course, with that very interesting cinematic of him having a full head of hair. And each companion will occupy their own wing and will progressively decorate these places, even bring improvements upon them to kind of spruce it all up. This is where you, by the way, spend a lot of time chatting up and romancing your companions too. We also talked about the Crossroads, so this is from where we can access that. It's described as a place in between, and that's basically what it is. Think of it as a bridge between the Fade and the physical world that the ancient elves created. So this is something that we can now explore and use to our own advantage. I'm also slightly affected by the Darkspawn, but this is how we're gonna get across the world and unlock new regions initially. But then they unlock as fast travel points, so we can just go in and teleport directly. Now, the way this works is that the Crossroads is also filled with Blighted, and like I said, as we travel through them, we have to eliminate them, eliminate the corruption, and this also opens up new routes that lead to new destination. So as we do so, these places do become unlocked as fast travel points. Now, one of the entities that helps us navigate here, as well as providing new upgrades, is going to be the Caretaker, and specifically the Caretaker's workshop plays a significant role in the way loot and progression is being handled. Now, you probably saw that items have stats, properties, and also come in different rarities. Well, that's pretty standard to like most RPGs, but the Caretaker's workshop kind of brings it a few steps above. So this one lets you progressively increase the power of the loot that you buy, get, and upgrade by, of course, just boosting that Caretaker's shop with a special resource called Mementos from +1 to +10. This in turn has a number of very strong effects on your loot. First of all, loot drops are now going to match the current shopkeeper level. So say previously you were only getting drops at a +1 rank, and in the meantime you got your shopkeeper at +5, the new loot will also drop at +5, which means better stats by default. Another thing is that your loot upgrades will also become better, so now you can boost your items at the current maximum using various resources, which in turn again means better stats. And finally, and the best thing in my opinion, is that they also made it possible to further get upgrades and even rank ups for your current gear using duplicates. Oftentimes it happens in video games that you get a really solid item early on, but it quickly becomes obsolete because of the natural process of leveling. However, finding or buying a duplicate in Veilguard will now boost your existing item to the current max rank your shopkeeper has, and it further upgrades that item to the next rarity available. Again, you have to find a duplicate of that item in the first place. And higher rarities also means unlocking more of those extra properties / affixes, which means more powers on that gear. So on paper, it sounds like a pretty solid way to avoid loot constantly becoming obsolete and needing a replacement, while providing more ways to boost the stats and rarity. Speaking of that, higher shopkeeper ranks also means more options to unlock more enchanting, and enchanting kinda continues from where runes left off in Inquisition, as in they provide bonus stats such as passive damage, critical chance, and so on. Except now you can also apply them both on gear and even on your skills, which sounds really interesting. This should give us a lot of room to fiddle with different builds and just give us a massive power boost. And yes, this includes both your gear and skills, and your companion's gear and skills respectively. Speaking of runes, this is another aspect of the combat, another active ability that you can trigger, and you can have up to 3 runes equipped on your special dagger on top of the 3 abilities and your ultimate. And there are different runes that provide different magical effects. Some of them, such as Mend, can provide a high range healing for your entire party. The Crystallized can provide a high range freeze, but in some of the previous gameplay, for example of this Blighted Dragon combat scene, we can also see it using one that can reset the cooldown of all of your party abilities, letting you pretty much spam your abilities again after triggering that once more time. So that is actually something that can make some of the builds very strong, but there are many others in there that can provide weakening effects or even increase the type of damage that you deal, like for example imbuing your attacks with necrotic or fire. Now, like in typical BioWare fashion, romance is going to play a huge role in this game. However, I kind of want to focus a bit on the gameplay aspect of it. And the important bit here is that your relationship level with these companions can also unlock new skills for them. That's not just via romance, mind you, though that plays a big role, but also friendship level. So you aren't actually forced to romance a character if you don't want to. It's likely that by bringing them in party with you and them agreeing with you and your choices will further increase that relationship status. It's unclear as of right now if there's any other way to unlock them, as nobody got that far, at least in the preview event. But romance is going to be important also because you get to take part in special side quests specific to each of these companions. They seem to have been putting a lot of effort into each of these specific side stories, kind of going over the background of these characters, which in turn may explain how we get to unlock some of those extra skills and abilities. So it may be worth it even if you don't pursue them romantically. But pretty much all companions, like I said, can be romanced regardless of your character choices. If you are into that, they can also be romancing each other, by the way, this time around. So if you wait for too long not making a move, you may end up with a situation where everybody is in a relationship but you. I don't really know that for certain, but it sounds like a possibility. But the game goes ahead of its way to show you when new dialogue options have appeared, so that if you are always on top of things, you can just see the special icons displayed in the lighthouse over each companion's room, indicating that there's new dialogues and new opportunities for romance. Speaking of course of these companions, there are 7 of them in total, each fitting a different role in your team and also providing different synergies. So for example, even though both Belara and Knave are mages and even share some of the mage abilities such as the time slow, Belara is a veil jumper, so she draws her power from the Fade, meaning she can channel that into useful damaging spells and Fade related debuffs. Meanwhile, Knave is more of a ice mage, so she features abilities like the Icebreaker that can freeze enemies. And besides this, there's also Emrich, which uses necromancy while also being a mage. So yeah, there are many different synergies you can create here. Plus, of course, there are other options if you prefer having a warrior or a rogue in your party. Like Lace Harding is a rogue. I know a lot of folks enjoyed her presence in Inquisition, so she's now a companion. And Lucanus, in my opinion, he's one of the coolest. I think he looks pretty awesome, and he's an assassin, so I'm probably going to have him in my party too. But one thing BioWare changed is that they significantly scaled down the whole party mechanic. Besides only having 2 companions with you now instead of the 3 we had in the previous Dragon Age games, you also don't get to control them anymore, meaning that if you want to try other classes, you kind of need to start a new playthrough, which is a bummer. Your companion skill tree is also a lot more condensed than yours this time around, offering only a handful of abilities to invest into, plus of course their passives that boost them. And they also have less items to fiddle with, namely only 1 slot for the main hand weapon, 1 for the offhand, another armor slot, and finally 1 for the trinket. But that's basically it. Now, as we talked about these choices, of course, decisions will play a significant role in your playthrough as well. And I'm mainly only saying significant for now because we've only seen like 1 major instance of it during our play session with the game, but there are others with various degrees of impact. So the one that we've seen that is significantly impactful, think of it as an entire place being catastrophically affected because of our prior choices. So I'm just gonna leave it at that without like spoiling anything. And BioWare also says that there are many other such decisions in the game, big and small, that will impact your story. So decisions will play a significant role in your playthrough. And besides this, we also know that there's many side quests, many places and hubs that you can go into and just pick off a lot of these side missions, help characters out that are tied into the overarching narrative of that specific location. These characters in turn will then provide us with better rewards, increase in reputation, so on and so forth. Now, there's also going to be a point of no return in the game, though BioWare has been quite vague on this one. However, I think there's going to be a main story warning once we reach it, but At higher grade levels, you're going to get higher grade challenges to fight. There's even mentions of Apex enemies eventually that we get to fight against. Now, previously and very recently, actually, we've seen the Blighted Dragon fight gameplay trailer from a few days ago. Now, this looks really exciting, as hunting down dragons in Inquisition was one of my favorite pastimes. Going in on the highest difficulty, getting a really strong build going on just to take on these awesome challenges. Sounds like we're back with that on the menu. Also, there are a few other things that I want to quickly confirm from my time session with it. So there's going to be a Transmog system in the game. Yes, you can access this pretty much from the lighthouse. There's a wardrobe over there that you can interact with, and this is going to let you change the appearance of your existing items with the appearance of other items that you have unlocked in the game. And you're even going to see an item next, an icon next to an item when you have done so. Also, in terms of the data transfer and world state, yes, this is done fully in-game, so no need to go on any EA website. But you only have 3 choices from Inquisition to carry over and import into Veilguard, unfortunately. This boils down to who your Inquisitor romanced, whether or not you disbanded the Inquisition, and whether you vowed to stop or save Solus in the previous game. And yeah, besides that, also creating that Inquisitor kind of side character at the end of the character creation. That's basically all we get. But I hope that at least in part this will influence the outcome of the story. Like, I am curious what happens if you vowed to save Solus compared to having vowed to stop him. Does that change the end portion of the game? I guess we'll wait and see. Also, before I forget, yes, there are absolutely multiple save slots, so you can have multiple save files and different parts of the story in which you can save. So in case you want saves coming, likely that's going to be back on the menu like in previous games. And second of all, you can and are actually encouraged to start new playthroughs, test out different classes and also the outcomes from the main story and whatnot. Also, let's not forget about different difficulty settings. We have anything from storytelling, adventurer, all the way to nightmare. So these are the 5 ones, with the storytelling being the easiest and nightmare pretty much being like the highest in terms of enemy damage you receive, and even like how tactical the AI is against you. But besides that, you also have control over creating your own difficulty with just going in and influencing like the gameplay experience. We have the unbound difficulty, which kind of gives you options in terms of what you want to affect, how much in terms of all of these parameters you want to affect, from lower all the way to higher. And yeah, that's pretty much it with the video. Let me know down below if you enjoyed this format. I am not like going full on with like the face cams and whatnot. It's just something that I wanted to try out. But if you enjoyed this, let me know down below. If it makes videos better, I can definitely implement them in some of the future videos. Maybe we will even do some live streams. But yeah, this is pretty much it. Thanks much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.